what do you think? I mean, who do you think were the principal actors in the recent elections, and what do you make of President-elect Dr. Muizzu's candidature? What is your initial assessment of his election rhetoric and also probable policies that he may implement?
Right. To begin with, I think the problem with this election, or probably the opportunity that it provided to Maldivian democracy, was that since Yamin was in jail, a lot of people, a lot of political parties anticipated to get a kind of a majority, or at least to have, it was their opportunity, because the strongman Yamin is in jail, and President Soli was having some kind of anti-incumbency swing, like as typical Maldivian politics do. So I think a lot of people, independent participants and even other people, anticipated that they could win these elections. So precisely speaking, there were three independent candidates. The Jamhuri Party, which has always been a traditional kingmaker. Then there was the Maldives National Party, which broke away from Jamhuri Party back in 2021, although it didn't do very surprisingly good in these elections. But the three parties that obviously drew the attention were the MDP, led by President Soli and other senior leadership of Abdullah Shahid, Fayaz Ismail. And then we had the Democrats, which were led by former President Nasheed and Parliamentary Speaker Nasheed, and the PPM-PNC combined. The PPM-PNC combined, also known as Progressive Alliance, was led by Yamin, and it was anticipated that Yamin would participate despite all the cases against him. Now, one thing that changed out in the last moment was that Yamin was, not allowed to participate in the elections, which, again, the constitution clearly mentions that so-and-so candidates cannot participate in elections. But what least people anticipated was Muizzu winning over the elections, right? And Muizzu securing a ticket from PPM-PNC, because PPM-PNC in itself, after Yamin was in prison, was unevenly distributed in terms of leadership. They have three leaderships in PNC, they have three leadership in PPM in terms of vice president. So it was quite a gamble, and no one knew who was going to emerge victor out of these 6 to 7 potential candidates, and Muizzu was the least hoped one for, and Muizzu won it. So these were the primary participants: Nasheed, Muizzu, Yamin, and Soli. But I think Nasheed's split from the MDP had a lasting impact on the MDP party itself. But coming back to your point on what this means about Muizzu's rhetoric, Muizzu's campaign, and Muizzu's present policy, it's tough to say how exactly Muizzu is performing right now, because, as I said, right, Muizzu was the least anticipated, least expected person to take over PPM-PNC presidency when Yamin was declared as someone who can't compete. And also, it was a case that even when Muizzu registered himself as, or when Muizzu registered with the Election Commission as a presidential candidate, Yamin made a statement saying that we will not participate in these elections, and Muizzu is a third appointee, right? That also indicates the way that PPM-PNC combined works. It's still dominated by Yamin. It continues to be dominated by Yamin, although Muizzu is now the new elect. He might try to fill the party with his own loyalists in a major portfolios, in some major party administrative tasks, but the party is still dominated by Yamin. And how Muizzu works is have to be a thin balance between the government, between the external diktats that are coming to the Maldives in terms of the geopolitics, broader geopolitics in the Indian Ocean and Indo-Pacific, and also how he'll have to manage the relations within his own party, with most of them being Yamin loyalists, and him trying to draw a balance between Yamin and himself. So that was a precise balance that we also saw in the campaign. Muizzu was not mentioning India by its name. At least in the campaign time, it was always like, oh, we'll want the foreign policy troops out. We want, the foreign troops out. We don't want any other military to station here, which was quite a contrast. If you look at Yamin and his campaign, he had a clear anti-India T-shirt saying India out. He had big posters saying India out. He openly said that India is violating our sovereignty, but Muizzu probably took another stance. Either way, he indirectly said what he wanted to say. He had conveyed what he wanted to convey. But he never named India in any of his speeches directly. Now, that is something that is changing. Recently, he has given a press interview saying that the major problems in our country coming from foreign policy are from India. So we want to sort this out. So it seems like he's walking the talk, at least for now, as it seems, considering his domestic constraints. And he has to keep Yamin and his loyalists and the rest of the PPM PNC, which voted Muizzu for or Yamin for the very reason that they believed India is violating their sovereignty. I think he has to work on these. He'll be pressurized to work on these fronts, but he'll also have to maintain a thin balance. And I think that's why this whole persona of him pushing for a diplomatic resolution or a diplomatic negotiation with India in terms of getting Indian troops out or whatever grievances they have with India. I think he's prioritizing the diplomatic channel rather than the political channel that Yamin had done in 2017, 2018. So I think that's where we see how how Muizzu is working. We don't have a definite say yet, but we see him being pressurized on domestic fronts, but we also see him trying to toe with the structural demands of Indo-Pacific and the Indian Ocean.